The plane's wheels kissed the tarmac, a jarring reminder of the past I thought I had escaped. The scent of salt and regret hung heavy in the air, mingling with the fading light of day. Why did I return to this place, where shadows of family secrets loomed larger than the mountains? Each heartbeat echoed the question. Could I confront the ghosts that haunted me? The invitation, an elegant white envelope, felt like a noose tightening around my throat. Would I find closure, or would the past swallow me whole once more? The last time they called me home, I left with bruises and no name. The jet descended into Los Angeles just as the sun bled into the Pacific horizon. I hadn't been back to California in 12 years, not since that night. Not since Margaret Carter tore my birth certificate in two with trembling hands, and Tom Harrison stood by, his silence louder than any curse. I had stood in the rain, then 16, half-starved, holding a backpack I hadn't even packed myself. That night, the Harrison family legacy washed its hands of me. No daughter, no heir, just bad luck dressed in work boots. And yet, here I was, their invitation had come 2 weeks ago. A crisp, white envelope, elegant and pristine, like the linens they used to have monogrammed. Inside, a handwritten note from my stepfather. We would like to have you for family gathering. Friday, family only. It wasn't signed. My fingers hovered over the trash can, but something in the script, a loop in the Y, too sharp to be written with affection, stayed my hand. That, and the silence that followed. No text, no call, not even a name. So, I flew. The Harrison estate hadn't changed. The wrought iron gates hissed open with robotic precision. The hedges were still surgically trimmed. The fountain still spat water like it wanted to forget whose money bought its stones. But the house, no, the mausoleum, loomed colder than I remembered. Its white pillars reminded me of ivory teeth waiting to chew. Martha, the old housekeeper, opened the door. She looked up at me and froze. Her eyes darted to the small scar near my temple, then to my boots, then back to my face, as if she couldn't decide whether to be relieved or afraid. "Miss Avery," she said, but it came out like a question. "They still call me that?" I asked. She stepped aside without answering. Inside, the air smelled of lemon oil and false memories. Margaret appeared first, descending the grand staircase in heels too delicate for her bitterness. She wore cream silk and a smile stretched too wide. "Avery," she purred. The silence between bites thickened. My fork hovered over the roast duck, but I couldn't swallow. Margaret Carter's smile was perfect, her eyes colder than I remembered. But Tom Harrison, his silence screamed louder than the words he didn't say. What was he hiding? Was I supposed to pretend nothing had changed, that we were still a family? A flicker of something, guilt, fear, passed over his face, but I couldn't be sure. The tension was unbearable. "What are you really hiding, Tom Harrison?" I almost asked, but the words stayed trapped behind my teeth. What was left to uncover? I had been home just 2 hours, but already the house felt like a mausoleum. Margaret's silk dress shimmered like a phantom, and Tom's gray eyes watched everything without ever really seeing. Nathan's empty seat loomed at the table, a reminder of the past we never spoke about. Family gathering was a quiet game of pretenses, Margaret Carter's polished smile hiding something far more sinister. But I had seen it. Her hands, so poised, so perfect. The gloves she hadn't worn until the wine started to make me dizzy. When I stood up, my legs betrayed me. The room spun, and all I could hear was Margaret Carter's soft laugh behind me. Too controlled, too practiced. What was that? A moment later, everything went dark. When I woke, everything had changed. The room was cold, the air thick with something I couldn't place. My head throbbed, my wrists ached. There was no phone, no purse, no way to reach out. And then, the worst part, no memory of how I got here. This wasn't a family reunion, this was a trap, and they had just set it for me. The room was still. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and printer ink, something cold, like a courtroom suspended in time. Jennifer Coe's office was silent except for the faint hum of her laptop. The sun crept in through narrow blinds, casting long golden stripes on the worn carpet. It felt like the calm before a storm. I should have been prepared for this, but the truth hit harder than I ever imagined. Jennifer sat across from me, her elbows on the desk, glasses slipping down her nose, her fingers scrolling through files as if she had all the time in the world. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat louder than the last. "You're not in the system," she said, not even glancing up. I leaned forward, the tension thick in my throat. "What do you mean?" She paused, the silence stretching longer than necessary. "As far as anyone's concerned, you were never part of the Carter family trust. Not now, not ever." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I was there. I was included." Jennifer's voice was sharp, matter-of-fact. I thought the same, so I dug deeper. She turned the laptop toward me. There it was, in black and white, my name, Avery Carter, right there on a document from 17 years ago. A beneficiary, with 1/3 of the inheritance if Tom Harrison Carter passed without a will. But that was then. Jennifer clicked a button and the screen shifted. The same trust, 6 months later. My name was gone, just erased. I froze, the air in my lungs suddenly too thick to breathe. Jennifer's finger hovered over the date, her voice colder than before. "This is completely illegal. California law requires a minor's consent before you can be removed." I pressed my hand to my temple, trying to process what she'd just said. It was like being punched in the gut. I hadn't asked for this. I hadn't wanted any of it. But now, it felt like I had no choice but to confront the ghosts of my past. The weight of that gold butterfly pin still lingered in my hand, its bent wing a cruel reminder of everything I'd buried. Had they known? Had they planned this all along? The question gnawed at me, relentless. But before I could speak, Jennifer's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "I think you need to hear this," she said, her tone final. "It's about your family." And just like that, I felt the walls close in. The air thickened with tension as the narrator's heart raced, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down like a heavy fog. Shadows danced along the walls, echoing Margaret Carter's whispered secrets. The faint scent of jasmine lingered, a stark contrast to the bitterness of betrayal. Just as the narrator's mind began to unravel the threads of deception, a chilling thought pierced through. What if the family they thought they knew was nothing but a carefully crafted illusion? The question hung in the air, begging for answers that felt just out of reach. A memory surfaced. Margaret Carter pacing the hallway in silk pajamas, her voice a low hiss as she whispered furiously into the phone. I stood frozen, too afraid to ask what was happening. Then, her voice rising sharply through the wall, words I couldn't understand but knew carried danger. Jennifer clicked another file open. "This might be unrelated, but 3 weeks after your removal, the Carter Corporation received a $15 million investment from a Hong Kong firm. The deal was contingent on new shareholder agreements. It seems someone gave up something, or someone, to make that happen." I laughed, but it felt empty. "You think they sold me?" Jennifer's voice was measured, careful. "Someone used your removal to sweeten the pot." I closed my eyes. Margaret Carter's smile from the night before flashed behind my lids. Too smooth, too practiced. Her gloves, her wine, the faint scratch on my neck that I hadn't noticed until this morning. My stomach churned. "What about the birth records?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jennifer's response was chilling. "Tampered. Your original certificate was voided, a new one issued with no middle name, no hospital listed." The breath caught in my throat. They hadn't just disowned me. They'd erased me, piece by piece, and I hadn't even felt the blade as it carved away my past. "You said I still have standing," I managed to say. Jennifer nodded. "If we can prove you were removed unlawfully, you could not only claim what's yours, but take them to court. Fraud, concealment, maybe even coercion. But you'd need proof." She paused, her tone sharpening. "And they'll fight like hell to keep this buried." I nodded slowly, the weight of the decision sinking in. I've fought worse. Jennifer studied me, then leaned in, her voice low. "The housekeeper, Martha. She was there the night they threw you out. She could be critical. You said she looked off when she saw you, like she was watching a ghost enter the room." Jennifer exhaled, the silence thick between us. "If she's willing to talk, she might confirm the timing of your removal. Maybe more." I met her gaze. "I'll find her." The ceiling fan spins lazily above, casting shadows that dance like ghosts across the peeling paint. My hand trembles as I clutch a torn photograph, the edges stained, the image blurry from sweat and the weight of unspoken secrets. Every breath I take is sharp with rain-scented air seeping through cracked windows, a reminder of the storm brewing outside, silent but relentless. Shadows flicker, flicker, across the faded wallpaper, mirroring the chaos in my mind. A faint creak from the hallway halts my heartbeat. Someone's coming, someone I never thought I'd see again. My fingers tighten. Do I reveal the truth or bury it forever? Every instinct screams to run, yet I stay rooted, frozen in place, waiting. The room falls into a deafening silence. A single breath, then. A voice. Will the past finally catch me, or can I escape what's coming? The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of rain that had just fallen, earth and metal mingling in a cold haze. I clutched the worn envelope, the edges frayed like whispers from the past, trembling in my hands. Chase's dark eyes bore into me, silent, weighty, an unspoken truth lurking beneath the surface. The report stared back, a puzzle with missing pieces. What secrets hide behind those figures? Why does every beat of my heart echo like a warning? Maybe it's just the storm outside, or maybe it's everything I've been chasing for years. Blood and smoke memories flicker in my mind, and suddenly I wonder if I can finally unlock what lies beneath, or if I'm about to drown in secrets I never knew I carried. A whisper of movement from the hallway. Someone's coming. The house feels frozen, waiting. I sense the moment hanging in the air, sharp, fragile. Do I break the silence or stay silent forever? The next breath decides, will I finally face the truth or run from it? The answer is waiting just beyond the shadows. What's hidden in the darkness? Will I find it, or will it find me first? The house felt caught in a perpetual dusk, the kind that presses in and refuses to release. I stepped into the hall, and the soft hum of old wood beneath my feet was like a distant echo of a life long past. The scent, damp, with a trace of dust and something sweeter, clung in my nose, tugging at memories I'd buried deep. Every creak of a floorboard felt like a whisper from her, Margaret Carter, reminding me of every battle, every cold glance, every door slammed tight between us. And even now, I could almost hear her voice, sharp, proud, unforgiving, lingering in the silence as if time hadn't moved at all. I've carried this weight, the unraveling family secrets, the ghost of who I once was, like a backpack full of stones. It's like trying to breathe through fog, each inhale thick with regret. Can I finally face her, or will I get lost in this house forever? The unanswered questions feel louder than the rain outside, which is pounding like a warning. Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm chasing redemption or just trying to exhale. Maybe both, because beneath all the shadows, I know the truth is waiting, silent and unrelenting, just like the storm that's brewing beyond these walls. The flicker of the fluorescent lights overhead felt almost like a heartbeat. Irregular, tense, waiting. I slid into the room like a shadow, mind razor-sharp. He used to say, "You'll know you've succeeded when even your memories start doubting your presence." Words like that, thick with layers I refused to peel back, that was how we survived. Deep cover, being forgettable, invisible. But now I needed to be undeniable. Inside the vault, a low hum of servers echoed like a pulse, each one recording, hiding, dividing truth from lies. My mission? Pull the echo signature logs, track my movements, my footsteps through history I'd long tried to erase. That night, October 11th, the same night my family whispered plans around the family gathering table, deciding I'd be their scapegoat. I bypassed 2 biometric checkpoints, weaving through motionless cameras that hadn't blinked for me in months. My ID useless. But the override code still worked. Just 20 minutes. That was all I had to locate the Echo console buried behind stacks of secure terminals. A young tech sat nearby, shoulders tense, eyes shifty. I nodded at him, voice flat. Need access to Echo logs for Operation Tundra Fence. His eyes flicked to the restricted sign, Diplomatic Tier 2. I slipped him a crumpled printout of my old clearance, outdated, sure, but enough to sow doubt. Just give me the console, I'll handle it. Reluctant, he tapped into the system. The buffer unlocked. 10 minutes before this all pinged, alerting security. I set the trace on my biometric tag, Series 9R817. It's the same tag that pinged in Panama near Darien, the night everything fell apart. I remembered the mission, each detail etched in my mind. Remote asset extraction, working with 3 others, a faked location. But then the screen blinked. No results. No location. Nothing. I whispered, "No, that's impossible." That was the moment my stomach sank. The system had erased me. Completely. My signature? Wiped clean, like I'd never been there that night. I scrolled through raw logs, timestamps, geopulses, each one a stark reminder. I had no alibi. It had been surgically scrubbed away. I looked at the tech, voice low. This was supposed to be diplomatic tier access. What's going on? A silence hung between us, heavy, unspoken. Because at that moment, I knew. They wanted me gone. Forgotten. Erased, and the question that haunted me now, was I just a ghost in their system? Or did I still have a chance to find what's real? I slide the dusty family album from the shelf, hesitating as my fingers brush the worn leather. As I crack it open, a piece of paper slips out, something tucked away, forgotten. I catch it midair, a photograph. But this isn't just a faded family portrait. It's a stranger's face, staring back at me. Yet, somehow, that face bears the exact same features I know. But with one twist, Margaret Carter's sharp eyes, her smirk, haunting me from decades ago. It's as if I've uncovered a ghostly mirror. The scent of mold and faded ink fills the air, swirling as my perspective shifts, my heartbeat quickening. How long have I been living a lie? Was I ever who I thought I was? What if the stories I clung to, about my roots, my identity, are just carefully crafted illusions? In that frozen moment, everything changes. That picture shatters the illusion of a clear past. It's not just about family estrangement anymore. It's exposing a secret so dark it threatens the very core of who I am. The truth, it might be borrowed or stolen. The family secrets are deeper than I ever imagined, more dangerous than I could have guessed. What if I've been living in a story that isn't mine? A false version of myself. Maybe all this time, I've been chasing shadows, trying to find the truth, when the truth has been hiding right in front of me, masked in a face I thought I knew. Only now, I realize, I might have been living inside an illusion. And the real question, How deep does this rabbit hole go? Because revealing this might overturn everything. I may never look at my reflection the same way again. The fluorescent glow cast long shadows across the room, punctuated by the faint hum of machinery. Jane's icy gaze lingered on the screen, where the distorted image of the trust amendment flickered unnaturally. Her knuckles whitened around the chair's armrest, every breath heavy with unspoken secrets. Outside, the distant muffled sounds of footsteps echoed, someone approaching, perhaps with knowledge that could shatter everything. A sharp tension settled in the air. Why is this record still here? And who really controls the truth? Will the next revelation be their undoing? I approached her cautiously. Behind a reinforced glass door stood a woman about my age with cropped auburn hair and a sharp jawline. Her deadpan confidence was a product of someone who had seen too much. "Jane?" I asked. She nodded once, no smile. "You're the one who requested the Carter Trust file." 9. A-show 8. I met her eyes. "You know that file isn't supposed to exist anymore." A flicker of defiance sparked behind her glasses. "That's exactly why I didn't delete it." She led me through corridors of security-locked drawers, rows of digital terminals. They told me to wipe several archives 2 years ago. "Routine," they said, but I checked the logs. Only my name had disappeared. Not my brother's, not my parents'. "Why didn't you delete mine?" I asked, my voice low. She paused at a filing terminal, typing quickly. The math didn't add up. Why delete a minor's trust documentation but leave the record of a $15 million transfer intact? Her fingers hovered over the keys. Then she tapped the screen. "Here," she said, the words almost cold. A scan of a document amendment to the Carter Family Trust Fund appeared, its signature field filled in cursive. Avery E. Carter, dated October 15, 2010. I squinted. The lines curved like mine, but too rounded, a child's mimicry of confidence. "That's not mine," I muttered. Jane didn't flinch. "You're right-handed. This signature was written with a left tilt. The pen pressure's wrong." She tapped the screen again. "They didn't even bother to mimic your capital A properly." She handed me a paper copy. Then, with the eerie calm of someone who knows too much, she slid a second folder from beneath the desk. "They thought I destroyed this," she whispered. It was a physical duplicate of the document, digitized from the original October 16, 2010. I scanned the document, memorizing every line. "I'll need copies," I said, "high resolution, and if anyone asks—" I trailed off. "They won't," she cut in. "I hate them more than you do." Her words froze me. "Why?" Jane hesitated, then muttered, "My mom used to clean the Carter's house." I blinked, the weight of her words sinking in. This wasn't just about family secrets anymore. It was something darker, something far more dangerous. But Jane's silence spoke volumes. We were both trapped in the same web. In that moment, the truth felt just out of reach. What if the family I thought I knew, the legacy I had believed in, was nothing more than a facade? What if the only thing keeping me from the truth was the fear of what might shatter in its wake? I needed to know. But was I ready for what I might find? The air was thick with tension, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. I could feel the weight of the truth pressing down on me, a suffocating blanket of betrayal. My heart raced as I replayed the voice message in my mind, each word echoing like a drumbeat. What would Margaret do when she found out? The thought sent a chill down my spine. I glanced at the door, half expecting her to burst in, her pride and bitterness ready to unleash. Would I finally confront her, or would I let the past continue to haunt me? They fired her after 20 years. No warning, no apology, no pension. And then she was gone, 6 months later. I had been too young to understand then, but now it all made sense. In a world like theirs, loyalty was a currency, and when it expired, you were disposable. Later that night, I forwarded the files to the forensic specialist, the one I trusted from a past case. Within hours, I received a voice message that felt like the punch of a cold wind. Avery, I ran the analysis twice. The signature's a forgery. 90% probability. Angle stroke pressure. Doesn't match your writing from age 16. I sat in silence, my heart pounding. For years, they had hidden behind legal walls and falsified documents, rewriting my history like a typo to be erased. But now I had the proof. Now I had the weapon. You can't kill a file that already exists in 4 different countries. I uploaded the encrypted file to EchoNet's secure terminal, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. Outside my apartment, the world slept, oblivious to the storm that was about to break over California. Each keystroke felt like the strike of a drum, calling me to a confrontation I could no longer avoid. The metadata was intact: time-stamped logs from October 11th, GPS coordinates, agent rosters. It was all there. One click and the file split in 2. One copy sent to Jennifer, my lawyer, the other cloaked in layers of encryption, destined for a journalist known only as Sable. The callback tone chirped once. Sable had it. 30 minutes later, Jennifer responded, "You weren't even in the country. This changes everything. I'm preparing the legal motion. Need one more thing." I knew exactly what she meant. Proof of Nathan's unsuitability. The truth was close now, closer than I ever imagined. But was I prepared for what would happen when the truth finally broke free? What would Margaret do when she found out? The game was on. But could I survive the fallout? The screen glowed in the dim light, casting harsh shadows across my face. My fingers hovered above the keys, heart racing as I opened the file. It was buried deep, hidden in plain sight within the Carter Trust's own risk layer. But there it was, Mech San ADM Red Flag 2017. My eyes scanned the metadata, confirming what I'd hoped but dreaded. Nathan Carter, arrested, in Tijuana. 5 years ago, the charge, possession of Schedule I narcotics, but the charges were quietly dropped, buried under diplomatic urgency. Still, not erased. I sat back, bile rising in my throat. Nathan, the golden boy, the one everyone admired, the one I thought was untouchable. Handsome, charismatic, and now utterly vulnerable. I didn't know whether to feel relief or disgust. Jennifer's email pinged through, confirming the discovery. The Carter Trust's succession rules, Clause 13, had a catch. Any heir must be free of felony charges for a decade before their appointment. That arrest, even erased from public record, counted. This was it. Their greed had written the clause that would unravel everything. All I had to do was let the truth breathe. I encrypted the file again, labeled it Succession Host Clause Host Breach, and sent it out, first to Jennifer, then to Sable, the journalist who'd been waiting for this moment. A simple auto-reply. Verification in progress. Publication pending. As the silence stretched, the apartment grew colder. I glanced at the photo on my desk, me, covered in dirt, tactical gear on, standing next to teammates who never asked who I was before I became who I needed to be. A new email blinked into existence, its subject line redacted. Another Carter IT audit, this one never meant for external eyes. But the truth was out. The storm was coming. The faint scent of white truffle still lingered in the air, as if that rich, intoxicating aroma could somehow mask what I was about to confront. Candlelight flickered and cast long, shifting shadows across the polished wood, tracing memories of a time when everything felt smooth and effortless. But beneath that glossy surface, I could still hear the distant clink of cutlery, sharp, hollow, echoing the silence that had haunted me since I was little. I hadn't forgotten. No matter how far I'd run, how much I tried to hide, the truth lingered, buried beneath layers of deception. It simmered in the cold space where we once believed warmth was permanent. And now, that truth is nudging, waiting, ready to explode. What happens when innocence and guilt collide? When long-buried secrets threaten to drown us all? The answers are waiting, hidden in plain sight, just beneath the surface of this fragile family portrait. The scent of old leather and faint musty wood flooded my senses as I stepped into the attic, the only place I could still feel her presence. Dust hung in the air, disturbed only by the creak of floorboards beneath my feet. My fingers brushed against the worn edges of the family albums, their pages brittle with age. I remembered the way Margaret Carter used to hold the photo albums, her fingers tracing the edges of our faces, as though we were all part of her story to control. A chill ran down my spine as the image of her, manipulating every moment, flashed in my mind. Over appetizers, I let them talk about fundraisers, about Nathan's upcoming venture, about their fake image of philanthropy. I hummed in response, nodded occasionally until dessert arrived, then I struck. I began slicing through my tarte tatin. The oddest thing happened last week. I was reviewing some old defense files, and it seems the echo signature data for October 11th was altered. Margaret's fork clinked against her plate. Tom's hand paused midair. "Echo signature?" he asked, feigning confusion. I sipped my water. It's funny, that system's designed to log agent movement across classified missions, and yet someone tried to erase mine from your group's private server, no less. Silence thickened the air. Breathing slowed. Margaret reached under the table, placing a hand on Tom. "I'm sure it's a coincidence," she said too quickly. "Our company has hundreds of contractors." "Of course," I replied, "but it's stranger still when the deletion code matches an internal directive signed by someone with board-level clearance." The waiter arrived. No, my waiter. His name tag read Rye, but his real purpose was in his vest pocket. I gave a slight nod. He placed the checkbook on the table, bowed, and left. Tom reached for the leather folder and froze. I'd already lifted the napkin over it, revealing not just a check, but a small unmarked USB. "What is this?" Margaret asked, her voice tight. "Oh, just a family gathering souvenir," I said, slipping it into my clutch. I thought we could all enjoy some audio nostalgia. I rose. Margaret's voice cracked slightly. "Avery, what exactly are you looking for?" I turned and smiled. "Not the truth. The truth already speaks for itself. I'm looking for acknowledgement." For the first time, my stepfather didn't blink. He flinched. A trust fund isn't just money. It's memory weaponized. Monday morning, sunlight spilled across the conference table, scattering shadows across a fortress of paper binders and tagged exhibits. The air was thick with tension, each document a reminder of the family legacy I was about to confront. What happens when the past collides with the present, when the weight of family secrets threatens to crush us all? The answers are waiting, hidden in plain sight, just beneath the surface of this fragile family portrait. I've sat through my share of family reunions, but this was something else. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the faint scent of old wood, dust lingering like memories I couldn't quite bring to life. I could still hear whispers of laughter from long ago, mingling with unspoken regrets that hung thick in the air. The faded photographs on the walls seemed to whisper secrets, secrets I desperately wanted to uncover, or maybe just understand. As I stood there, the weight of the Harrison family legacy pressed down, so heavy it nearly knocked me over. Betrayal slipped through the cracks, icy and persistent, piercing my bones. It ignited something fierce inside, a stubborn fire pushing me to confront what I'd always avoided. Is it possible that beneath all this perfection, there were lies I never knew? That the past, so carefully hidden, would come crashing down now in this quiet room, just when I thought I'd moved on? I looked around, senses sharp, the scent of rain on the window pane, the creak of the aged floorboards, a soundtrack of long-forgotten family stories, waiting for an outsider to listen. And yet, here I was, stepping closer to the truth, knowing it might dismantle everything I thought I knew about myself and where I belonged, or set me free. I'll have to escalate this. The tension in the room thickened, a palpable silence enveloping us as the weight of the revelation settled. "Please, do I cut in?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. We all knew what it meant. If the trust was corrupted at its roots, the disbursements would freeze. Nathan, who had lived off that river of gold like a parched king, would find himself choking on the dry air of accountability. Elaine slid a printed email across the table. "We also uncovered this," she said almost too casually. The sender, Nathan Carter. The subject, urgent trust timeline. The body read, "Handle the Avery issue before the 18th or the fund freezes." We're exposed if she links the Yo-08 doc to the Mexico charge. I stared at it, not because I didn't believe it, but because I had always suspected it. "You said the 18th, I murmured. Jennifer nodded. 3 days. I leaned back, breathing slowly. "We're not chasing the money," I said aloud, mostly for myself. "We're chasing the lie they thought was airtight." The air in the room shifted, not because of heat, but because we'd found a crack in the vault. All it needed now was pressure. Some people vanished into silence, others into strategy. Oscar Baines didn't look like a ghost. His beard was longer, his eyes more sunken. But he wasn't dead, and in this case, that made him dangerous. I found him behind a gas station on the outskirts of Silverton, Oregon, living above a rusted-out auto shop that smelled like grease and paranoia. It had taken 3 burner phones, 2 anonymous tips, and Luca rerouting my GPS through half the West Coast to get here. But I was looking for someone who'd already died once. That made him hard to scare and harder to trace. Oscar cracked open the door like he expected a bullet, not a visitor. When he saw me, he didn't smile. He just stepped aside and let me in. "You're Avery," he said. "Didn't think you were real." "Likewise," I replied, scanning the walls lined with grocery receipts, USB drives, and old printouts from Carter Group expense reports. The flickering candlelight cast shadows on the walls, mirroring the dark secrets we were about to unearth. Outside, the wind howled, a reminder of the storm brewing within our family. Would we be ready to face the consequences of our discoveries? The pulse of uncertainty raced through my veins, each heartbeat echoing the question that hung in the air. What would happen if the truth came to light? He poured black coffee into a chipped mug, handing it over without a word. No pleasantries, just facts unspooled like wire. "I signed off on a batch of offshore transfers," he said, his voice steady. "They claimed it was for legal executive bonuses, R&D expenses, but the numbers didn't add up." "What did you do?" I asked, my heart racing. I wrote a report quietly. No accusations, just numbers that didn't balance. The next week, my brakes failed driving down I-84. My car flipped. They pulled a body from the wreck, not mine. "You went along with it," I said, the realization hitting hard. "I got a call. A female voice said if I lived, I'd watch my sister die instead." I had a choice. I didn't blame him. I knew that voice, too. "What do you have now?" I pressed, urgency creeping into my tone. He reached into a rusted ammo box, pulling out a mini voice recorder, scratched but intact. "It's from 2019. I was still in the office." Left it recording in the executive lounge. Margaret Carter didn't know it was live. He clicked play. Her voice poured out, measured and imperious. "Once Avery's gone, it all stays buried. She's the link. Remove the link, the chain disappears." I paused the audio, my breath hitching. "That was the plan," I murmured. Oscar nodded, his expression grim. "They didn't expect you'd come back." I glanced out the foggy window. A black SUV sat parked across the street. too clean, too idle. "We need to go," I said, pulling out my phone. "Someone's watching." "No one knows I'm here." "Someone does now." I texted Luca. Seconds later, the SUV's brake lights flared, then froze. The engine died. Luca's message buzzed through. "Signal spoofed, GPS looped. You've got 5 minutes." Oscar saw my expression and gave a bitter smile. "You have friends." I had numbers. We moved fast out the back, through a thicket of fir trees, past an abandoned cabin whose roof sagged like an apology. My heart thumped in rhythms I hadn't felt since my last field mission. When we stopped, Oscar pulled something else from his coat. Another recorder? This one smaller, shinier, new. "What's that?" I asked, curiosity piqued. "Insurance," he replied, his eyes narrowing. As the recorder crackled to life, Margaret Carter's voice spilled out, cold, calculating, revealing she'd orchestrated the entire accident to protect their family's secrets. The room seemed to shrink. The air thickened with betrayal. Suddenly, the cruel irony hit. I had always believed our estrangement was rooted in distant, personal wounds, but now it was clear. Everything was manipulated, spun from shadows. The reveal shifted the story's lens. Who really holds power in this family? Who's telling the truth, and who's just a ghost lingering behind gathered masks? The pulse of uncertainty raced through my veins, each heartbeat echoing the question that hung in the air. What would happen if the truth came to light? The courtroom buzzed with a nervous energy. Every eye was on Jennifer as she stood, poised, ready to reveal what was hidden in plain sight. The air felt thick with anticipation, like a storm waiting to break. "This is it," she whispered, her voice barely audible but full of gravity. Judge Cooper, an imposing figure with gray hair and the reputation of a fierce, impartial arbiter, entered the room. His gaze swept over everyone like a blade. "Proceed," he commanded. The tension in the air was palpable. Jennifer began, her voice steady but carrying an undeniable weight. "Your Honor, we request this preliminary hearing. Consider evidence that will challenge the legal standing of the 2008 Trust Amendment executed by the Carter family, on the grounds of fraud, suppression of identity, and manipulation of inheritance through criminal means." The room seemed to freeze. A murmur rippled through the spectators. On the other side of the room, Delacqua, the Carter Group's attorney, raised an eyebrow, disbelief written across his face. "Your Honor, we've seen no such evidence." Jennifer didn't flinch. Instead, she raised a flash drive, the small device gleaming under the courtroom's harsh lights. "Then allow me to introduce it." With a curt motion, Judge Cooper nodded. A technician quickly connected the drive to the court's system. The screen flickered and hummed to life. It displayed coordinates, timestamps, and heat signatures, data that felt too real to ignore. "This," Jennifer said, her voice ringing out with cold certainty, "is a government-certified echo signature. It records biometric data and geolocation signals simultaneously. This one, dated October 11th, proves Avery Carter was deployed with U.S. defense personnel in Panama during the time frame in which the Carter Group claims she was involved in a vehicular accident in California." The silence that followed was deafening. I couldn't breathe. The pieces were falling into place, but the weight of the truth was suffocating. And then, just as the moment seemed to stretch on forever, I saw it, a flash of movement in the shadows. Tom Harrison. He stood there, a faint glint of something clenched in his hand. It was a photograph, a faded, well-worn photo that held a secret buried too deep for too long. As the flickering light caught the edge of the photo, the unspoken truth hit me like a bolt of lightning. Tom Harrison's silence wasn't just a choice, it was a shield hiding a past that was now about to surface. The courtroom, once a battleground of legal tactics, now felt like a stage for something far bigger, a family's buried history. What started as a legal fight a simple battle over inheritance, was transforming into the unraveling of everything they had tried so hard to keep hidden. And in that moment, with everything hanging in the balance, I realized something deeper. The real fight wasn't just for the truth, it was for who gets to control it. What happens when the past comes back to claim its due, when the truth claws its way into the light, demanding answers from those who thought they could bury it forever? The room shifted, and with it, everything I thought I knew about this family, about my own history, flipped. The truth had finally emerged. But now, who would pay the price for it? A low murmur buzzed through the room as the screen flickered to life. My silhouette appeared next to two operatives, the jungle terrain behind us unmistakable. Time stamped. Verified. Signed. Judge Cooper's eyes snapped to attention. Authenticated, Jennifer confirmed, her voice cold and unwavering. Delacour tried to cut in, but Jennifer wasn't having it. "Let's move on," she said, and with a click, the next file appeared. Margaret Carter's voice echoed, elegant, ice-cold. "Slip the clip into the glove compartment. No blood, no trauma. It'll look like a minor crash. We'll say she panicked and ran. By the time anyone checks, she won't be traceable." Gasps filled the room. My hands tightened into fists, but I kept my gaze fixed. Delacour went pale. Margaret Carter's words hung in the air like venom, sharp and calculated. Judge Cooper raised an eyebrow. "Is this recording verified?" Jennifer nodded. "Yes, chain of custody is intact. Metadata aligns with the Carter Group's internal network." Delacour shot to his feet, his voice trembling. "Objection, this is an ambush." Jennifer's response was immediate, her tone unyielding. "This is a response to a decade-long strategy of silencing and erasing the truth." The judge leaned back, fingers templed. "I'll allow it. Continue." Jennifer hesitated before turning to me. "There's more, Your Honor, but we'll reserve that for the full evidentiary hearing. Today, I only needed to restore my name to the record." Just then, the door slammed open. Two men in suits flanked a woman with a high-security badge. She strode toward the bench, her heels clicking like gunshots in the silence. "Judge Cooper," she said, handing over a sealed envelope. "Pursuant to executive authority, the Office of Strategic Integrity submits this letter as an addendum to today's hearing." Delacour stammered, "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Her eyes met mine for just a second, cold, calculating, and she nodded. Judge Cooper opened the letter slowly, scanning its contents. He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. The tension in the room was palpable. What had just been revealed, and what would happen when the final piece of this twisted puzzle fell into place? The courtroom was thick with silence, almost like the air had been soaked in rain. Outside, the distant hum of Los Angeles traffic and the faint rustle of palm trees swaying in the cool breeze couldn't shake the feeling of something about to snap. I watched Oscar Baines step forward, shoulders hunched but eyes sharp, like a ghost from a storm I thought I'd buried deep. He looked older, shadowed, his presence haunting in a way that made my skin crawl. Every heartbeat felt loud enough to drown out the murmur of the crowd. What secrets could he carry? Could he finally crack the silence sealing our past? Margaret Carter's bitter glare pierced through the room, her pride as solid as steel. This moment, it could shatter everything, or finally set me free. I felt my insides twist, anticipation and dread squeezing tight. Would truth come out tonight, or would it slip away like smoke in the rain? The tension gripped me. I knew I couldn't turn away now. Everything hung on what this man was about to say. The silence grew heavier. Would we finally confront the darkness hiding in the family shadows, or would this be just another false dawn? My hope was fragile. My resolve, finally, unbreakable. In that heavy pause, I wondered, what really mattered here? The answer hovered in the air, waiting to fall. The courtroom felt like a storm brewing beneath my skin. The air was thick, almost heavy enough to drown out every breath. Outside, the faint scent of rain mingled with the city's exhaust, a reminder of how fragile moments like these are. The judge's gavel echoed, a hollow sound that barely pierced the silence. Margaret Carter's eyes burned into me, resentment simmering like a silent storm, while Tom Harrison shifted as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Martha stood at the back, expression unreadable, guarding her silence. You ever wonder if the truth is hiding just behind a curtain, waiting until the right moment to finally step into the light, or does it get lost in the shuffle, slipping through cracks we didn't know were there? What happens when the last piece drops into place? Will everything finally come apart, or will it change everything? That question hangs, heavy in the air, unresolved. The storm is coming. Who will be left standing when the dust settles? The scent hits me every time I walk into Grandma's house. Leather worn smooth by decades, lavender and something sharper lingering in the air. It wraps around me like a dusty shawl, heavy and familiar. I slip into the attic, where sunlight filters through cracked windows, casting slanting golden beams onto a battered cardboard box. Inside, faded photographs curl at the edges, old letters crackling with age under my fingertips. I feel the ghosts of stories I never knew. They whisper from the brittle paper, voices lost to time. Then, a fleeting wisp of her perfume. Lavender, yes, but with a spicy undertone, triggers something buried deep. Her quiet smile, the secrets she kept behind closed curtains. How many truths are hiding in shadows we're too afraid to face? Or maybe some truths are just waiting, quiet, patient, like the rustle of rain on the window pane. I've come here to confront my past, to unearth what's been buried. But arriving at that truth? It's like trying to grab a ghost in the rain, just out of reach, slipping through my fingers. And yet, I can't turn away. Not anymore. Because beneath all the silence, I wonder, what's really mine to find? The answers or the peace? The pursuit feels like chasing my own reflection, distorted, elusive. Still, I keep digging, because maybe, just maybe, understanding the shadows is the only way to light my own way forward. Before this meeting began, I leaned in and said, "You are all sent one final piece." The screen darkened, then flickered to life. Jane's voice broke the silence first. This was recorded on February 12, 2015. Margaret Carter had no idea the archive system still logged private conversations. Then came Margaret Carter's voice, clear, chilling, and cruel. "It's not my daughter, it's my mistake. One I'm correcting now while there's still time." A heavy silence fell. Even Tom, usually so composed, stared at the screen as if seeing his wife for the first time. I suggested, my voice steady, "You should question not just their financial practices, but their moral authority to lead anything." The vote was finalized. Tom was suspended. Margaret Carter was forcibly removed from her advisory role pending a full investigation. The screen no longer showed my face, only the empty boardroom filled with people who once thought themselves untouchable. For the first time, they were silent, staring at the ruins of what they once called a legacy. You don't heal from being unloved, you just learn to survive it differently. I walked into the cold, windowless visiting room, my heart heavy with no expectation of change. Nathan sat behind the plexiglass, thinner than I remembered, his eyes sunken into a face that had once been smug beyond repair. Now, he looked like a man whose entire scaffolding had collapsed, realizing it was his own hands that had loosened the bolts. He picked up the phone first, his fingers trembling. "Avery," he said, almost reverently as if invoking something sacred. "I didn't know. I thought you thought I was gone," I replied evenly. "You thought the car crash would finish what your lies started." Nathan closed his eyes, pain etched across his features. "I didn't want you to die." "Want doesn't matter," I shot back. "You stood by while they erased me." He pressed his forehead against the glass, breath fogging the pain. "I was scared. You don't understand what it's like to live in their shadow." "Don't I?" I slid a folded piece of paper toward the guard who passed it through to him. What's this? In that moment, the air thickened with unspoken truths. What would it take to break the cycle, to confront the shadows that loomed over us? The answers felt just out of reach, like whispers carried away by the wind. But I knew one thing. I was done running. It was time to face the past, to reclaim my story, and to find the peace that had eluded me for so long. A whisper of salt and dried sage drifts in the stale air of an old porch. The sun, cracked and pale, filters through shattered shutters, casting jagged shadows across faded upholstery. I clutch a worn photograph, edges curling, fingertips trembling, as I trace the faces frozen in time. Around me, the distant hum of waves crashing feels so far away from this quiet, heavy confrontation. Each memory slices sharp, scars still raw, betrayals silent as shadows. How do you face the echoes of a past that refuses to stay buried? The scent of rain hangs heavy, mingling with the salty sting of regret. Inside, a cold, windowless room. My heart beats heavy, beating a quiet rhythm of anticipation and dread. Nathan sits behind the glass, thinner than I remember, his eyes sunken, face hollowed by what he's lost. Once smug, now broken, he's a ghost of himself, realizing the scaffolding he thought held him up is shattered. His trembling fingers reach for the phone, voice cracking, almost sacred. "Avery," he whispers as if summoning a vanished prayer. I say nothing, my lips tight. I wonder, what did it cost him to stay silent, to let the world erase me? I slide a folded letter, more akin to a confession, toward the guard. The air thickens. What is it that breaks cycles, that allows the truth to finally surface? Shadows flicker just beyond reach, whispers carried away on the breeze. I know one thing, no more running. The past is here, waiting. It's time to reclaim my story, to confront the ghosts, to seek the peace I've hunted for so long. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, I told him once, just the silence after the storm. That's all I needed to say. Nathan reads the note, his lips moving silently. When I turn away, he stays silent, unmoving. No call, no plea, just an empty room. My next stop is a care facility outside Los Angeles, the scent of antiseptic blending with salt water drifting through the open windows. The ocean, restless and endless. There's Tom Harrison Carter, once king of venture empires, slumped in a wheelchair facing the sea. Folded blankets, knees pulled tight like a child's. I didn't expect words, I didn't get them. When I stepped in, he didn't acknowledge me. No glance, no greeting. But I leave a small silver lighter, engraved with coordinates, Lucas's handwriting, placed beside his tea. Only I understand their meaning. I watch him stare, unmoving, eyes flickering briefly at the gift. It still works, I say quietly. Flames flicker unpredictably, like its last owner. Still nothing, no regret, no anger. Leaning closer, I lower my voice. You knew I wasn't dead, I say, and you let them write me out of everything. His knuckles tighten on the wheelchair's armrests. I wonder, what cost him his voice? It turns out that was too expensive. Later, at a small church meant for quiet shame and modest weddings, Margaret Carter sits in a pew, draped in black, though no one's died, not officially. Her heels tap on the worn floor as she turns to face me, venom on every syllable. Come to gloat. No, I reply softly. Gloating takes joy. Her lips curl in disdain. You think this makes you strong? Destroying your family when the world's watching? I lean into her, voice calm but unwavering. I didn't tear them apart. You built the house on a fault line. Shoulders squared, Margaret Carter shoots back. Will anyone remember you kindly after this? I meet her eyes, steady. I don't need kindness, just truth. She steps closer, hands fluttering to her chest. Are you happy now? I pause, my gaze pierces her, eyes that watched me burn without flinching. No, I say softly, but I don't have to bow anymore. Her hand falters, trembling slightly as she gazes at me, an echo of the girl I once was, fierce and unbowed. In the dim glow of the musty family den, I expected confrontation, maybe a confession or a fight. But Margaret Carter's face, it was different. There was something in her eyes, vulnerability, shaking like a leaf in the wind. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a faded photograph. Her hand trembled. The room felt heavier, quieter, as I realized this wasn't about the secrets anymore. It was about something deeper, something buried in her own wounds, something she couldn't admit, not to anyone. The truth, it wasn't just about the family's lies, it was about the love she couldn't let go of, the kind she couldn't even face in the mirror. I thought she'd strike me, but instead, she staggered backward, her face drained of color. She gripped the edge of the pew and crumpled. I didn't move. It wasn't a death, just a fainting spell, a reaction to a truth she was too scared to confront. The pastor rushed from the sacristy, calling her name. I didn't wait. I walked out into the sunlight, feeling clarity, not closure. I never came for closure. I came for this moment, this understanding that the past was just a story, and I no longer needed to be part of it. There was no grand finale, no heartfelt goodbye, just a government-issued envelope, silent, cold, and without expression. Inside, a passport with a new name, crisp and sharp in print. No aliases, no chains, just freedom. The cabin I'd found was tucked by a frozen lake in Maine, the kind of place where silence doesn't just fill the space, it owns it. Pinewood, fresh snow, and the occasional crack of ice beneath the weight of winter. Finally, I could breathe. I opened the window a crack, letting the chill in, when the radio buzzed from behind me, the static crackling before a voice cut through. Carter Group formally dissolved following federal investigation. Board members facing continued inquiry. I didn't turn the volume up. I didn't need to. That story had already played out. It wasn't mine anymore. Then a knock. Sharp, precise. Not urgent. When I opened the door, there was nothing. Just a box resting on top of a scarf I hadn't seen in years. A name written on the side. Luca. No return address. Inside, an old lighter. Scratched, worn, but familiar. A small folded paper tucked inside. Silence is earned. I held the lighter in my hand, tracing the ridges. For years it had sparked fires in a life that wasn't mine, lighting up shadows that weren't always monsters, but they weren't innocent either. I placed the lighter by the window, watching as the neighbor across the field, a woman with gray braids and a golden retriever, raised her mug in greeting. I nodded back, 2 words passing between us. That was enough. I'd learned long ago, some silences are louder than any words. Later that evening, I found myself at the old wooden table, cradling a cup of black tea. In front of me lay the last photo from my childhood, creased and worn, a relic of forgotten corners. Margaret Carter's hand rested on my shoulder, her smile a mask of pride, while Tom Harrison stared just off camera, lost in his own world. I was just 7, already learning to smile like I wasn't drowning in a sea of expectations. They took my name, my records, my place in the will, my very identity. In return, they gave me nothing. Yet the fire crackled beside me, warm and alive. I had no titles, no obligations, no legacy to uphold, just a name that no longer needed permission to exist. I traced my finger along the windowsill, watching snowflakes drift down like secrets from a life I owed nothing to. In the distance, wind chimes sang a melody of new beginnings, not endings. I whispered into the quiet, more to myself than to the sky. My name was never the curse. It was the key, and somewhere in that silence, justice breathed. Justice delayed isn't justice denied, but it demands an audience. The federal courthouse loomed ahead, a monolith casting shadows over the rows of reporters and murmuring spectators pressed against its stone steps. It was one of those mornings where even the sky held its breath, gray, unyielding, expectant. Inside, the courtroom pulsed with tension, packed shoulder to shoulder. Every camera was rolling, every journalist perched for a sentence, a slip, a signal. I chose not to sit in the front row. A seat by the exit was enough for me. Nathan was brought in, cuffed, his face gaunt yet composed, almost as if he still believed in miracles. He didn't glance my way, not once. The judge, a woman with a voice like hammered steel, wasted no time with pleasantries. We are gathered to deliver final sentencing in the case of Nathan Carter versus the United States of America. Each word she read, racketeering, fraud, obstruction, conspiracy to commit murder, struck the courtroom like gravel on a casket lid. The air was thick with unspoken words, charged with the weight of our shared history. I glanced at the photo again, the faces frozen in time, yet the emotions swirled like the snow outside. What if the truth was buried deeper than I imagined? The fire crackled, a reminder of warmth amidst the cold reality of my past. I could almost hear Margaret Carter's laughter echoing, taunting me. Was I ready to confront the shadows that loomed over my family? The question hung in the air, heavy and unresolved, urging me to dig deeper. When the eye moved past the flashing cameras, footsteps echoing through the silence that followed. Questions hung heavy in the air, unspoken, unresolved. They tried to bury her under lies, forged signatures, staged tragedies. But the truth, it bore a weight no lie could hold. It pushed through, louder and clearer. Justice didn't come on their schedule. It arrived on her terms, etched into courtrooms, buried in corporate ruins, carried by survivors who refuse to vanish. When brutality tries to silence, the truth becomes a drumbeat of resistance. It's not just about a verdict anymore. It's about rewriting history. Because no matter how high the walls of deception, they crumble when faced with raw, unyielding truth. What do you think? Was this the moment where the past finally starts to crack, or are the shadows still waiting in the wings?